If leaks and teasers are any indication, phone manufacturers are becoming more fixated on thinness with 1980s fitness experts. We already know about the Samsung S25 Edge. At least we know one of the most notable features of the device. Samsung said a form that's sleek, powerful, and unlike anything you've seen before, while previewing the gadget at January's Galaxy Unpacked event. And according to folks who set eyes on the prototype devices Samsung's wheeled out to demonstrate, the promised smartphone seems slimmer than any other phone out there. If speculations about the iPhone 17 are to be believed, Samsung won't be the only significant phone manufacturer to release a thin gadget this year. Allegedly, Apple is developing an iPhone 17 Air that may be as thin as 5.5 millimeters. The iPhone 16 Plus, which is supposed to replace 7.8 millimeters thin in Apple's phone range. The largest brands either developing or soon to release ultra-thin phones are Samsung and Apple. You simply had to walk the exhibition floor at last month's Mobile World Congress 2025 event in Barcelona to witness many more examples, including the 5.75mm thin Techno Spark Slim design. Clearly, thin is fashionable, and it seems like the Galaxy S25 Edge will be the first in an onrush of handsets stressing a small form factor. The issue is why all the recent interest on thin phones. And then there's an urgent follow-up question. What else are these phones going to provide us? The first question is really quite straightforward to answer. While Apple likely didn't design the first smartphone, the iPhone was the gadget that popularized the notion of having your mobile phone handle more than simply calls and the odd text message. That gadget launched in 2007, about 20 years ago. Smartphones are a mature category and consumers are keeping them longer, said Avi Greengart, principal analyst of Texponential. Manufacturers are looking for ways to differentiate with design and accelerate upgrades. To put it another way, cell phones have been around for a long now, and a lot of parallels have slipped into the top phones out there. Features that used to set the best models apart, fast refreshing screens, long-lasting batteries, and the like, have made their way into more cheap versions. Even high-end camera sets featuring specialized telephoto lenses are starting to crop up in sub-$500 choices, like the Nothing Phone 3a Pro. So phone companies have to find other methods for their higher-end smartphones to stand out and to entice users with older phones to switch to a premium model. Recently, that's been driving up the brightness of screens. Now, effort appears to be moving toward making phones slimmer. It makes sense. Big screen handsets are significantly more popular than the finest compact phones. Those larger displays demand bigger frames, too, which might result in bulkier designs that aren't as convenient to take about. Tackling a phone's thickness may solve that problem. And make no mistake, the skinny phones we're talking about are going to feature huge displays. Samsung hasn't announced Galaxy S25 Edge specifications yet, but it's commonly thought that the phone will include a 6.6-inch display. Rumors predict the iPhone 17 Air will boast a 6.6-inch screen as well. The second issue confronting the impending slew of ultra-thin phones, what will they provide other a slim design, is one that I've been asking since that Galaxy S25 Edge teaser at the start of the year. And it's one phone manufacturers have yet to give a solution for. It appears like we're going to have to wait until Samsung's official S25 Edge announcement, now supposedly occurring in May, to find out whether there is one. Based on what we've heard so far, if anything it appears like phone manufacturers are pulling away functions. The Galaxy S25 Edge on display only has 2 rear cameras rather than the triple camera array featured on previous Galaxy S models. iPhone 17 Air speculations say Apple is continuing with one back camera as it did with the iPhone 16e. Battery life might be a concern too, at least with the S25 Edge. Rumors indicate the phone would feature a 3,900 mAh battery pack, which would be smaller than the cell powering the ordinary Galaxy S25. I'm skeptical that consumers will be willing to give up battery life for a thinner form factor. That may be a hard sell for some folks. I'm skeptical that consumers will be willing to give up battery life for a thinner form factor, Greengart added. It should also be mentioned that the speculated iPhone 17 Air may have worked out a method to overcome the battery life difficulty of having a super thin phone to endure a long period on a charge. Bloomberg's Mark Gurman has speculated that the iPhone 17 Air may have battery life on par with its current models, which would be better than the average smartphone based on our iPhone 16 battery test findings. Besides, even with his reservations about battery life for a small phone, Greengert thinks there's an allure to this new design. There were crowds of journalists absolutely jamming the display area at Samsung's last Unpacked event, trying to get a picture of the Galaxy S25 Edge, he continued. Thin gadgets are cool. Ultimately, it's going to up to phone manufacturers to make the case as for products like the Galaxy S25 Edge and any other thin phones that could come up this year. And it will down to customers to determine whether the idea of a tiny phone is enough to entice them to pay for a new handset. It's not out of the question that phone manufacturers may have discovered means to breathe some fresh life into a mature market. Nobody asked for the Motorola Razr back in 2004, Greengert stated. And Moto sold over 100 million of the things. This isn't the first time smartphone companies like Apple have targeted thinness as the ultimate design objective. Back in the early 2010s, there was a definite fixation with making gadgets thinner with each release. Apple reduced the iPhone 6 down to 6.9 millimeters. Motorola debuted the Moto Z with a modular design to compensate for its thin chassis, and Oppo pushed limits with the R5, which was only 4.85 millimeters thick. At the time, thinness was viewed as a headline characteristic, frequently linked with innovation and luxury engineering. But the trade-offs rapidly became evident. Thinner phones often meant lower batteries, worse thermal performance, and more flimsy frames. In other circumstances, camera quality was hampered by the lack of room for bigger sensors and stabilizing technology. The industry eventually switched emphasis, understanding that use and lifespan mattered more than shaving off an additional millimeter. That trend is mirrored in the flagship phones we see today. Devices like the iPhone 16 Pro Max, Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra, and Google Pixel 9 Pro aren't made to be ultra-thin. They're built to function while being robust and powerful. In retrospect, it's evident why the ultra-thin trend vanished. There's only so much internal space you can surrender before doing so begins to impair the experience in important daily ways. Next, here's the 7 biggest rumors of the iPhone 17 Air. So far, the iPhone 17 Air might end up being a great success or a monster-sized disaster. It actually might go either way, but it makes sense for Apple to freshen up the new iPhone range for 2025. After all, the iPhone 17 Air would apparently replace the iPhone 16 Plus model, which has not been a strong seller for Apple for the previous 2 generations, according to several rumors. And I can see why. It's good to have a huge screen for less, but I believe most people who want it gravitate for the costlier and more powerful iPhone 16 Pro Max. The iPhone 16 Pro Max costs $300 more than the iPhone 16 Plus, but when you mix in carrier discounts and trade-in promotions, that difference may diminish in a fast, particularly when stretched out over a couple of years of payments. As the thinnest iPhone ever, the iPhone 17 Air is being positioned as something genuinely unique in Apple's range, and there's lots of reasons to be thrilled, and also some things to be frightened about. Here's the biggest iPhone 17 Air rumors so far. Based on the leaks and reports I've heard, the iPhone 17 Air might be as thin as 5.5 millimeters, 0.21 inches, compared to 7.8 millimeters for the iPhone 16 Plus, 0.3 inches. The Samsung Galaxy S25 Edge is anticipated to be 5.84 millimeters, so the iPhone 17 Air might end up being the thinnest phone in the world from a major manufacturer. The Techno Spark Slim measures 5.57 millimeters, but that's merely a concept for now. The iPhone 17 Air will allegedly sport a 6.6-inch OLED display. That's a tiny bit smaller than the iPhone 16 Plus, 6.7 inches. But sufficiently enough for immersive entertainment and gaming on the road. Plus, the iPhone 17 Air's display is believed to boast a 120 Hz refresh rate utilizing LTPO technology. That means you should experience smooth frame rates coupled with always-on display capability. The iPhone 17 Air is reported to boast a single 48 megapixels wide camera, which seems like a letdown considering that the model it's replacing sports both a wide and ultra-wide lens. The also means you won't get a telephoto zoom, however Apple will likely offer you the equivalent of 2x optical zoom via the 48 megapixels camera. The good news is that the front camera on the iPhone 17 Air is anticipated to see a resolution boost from 12 megapixels to 24 megapixels. This should result in better detailed selfies. The iPhone 17 Air will likely have the same A19 processor as the standard iPhone 17, and Apple will save the A19 Pro chip for the iPhone 17 Pro and iPhone 17 Pro Max, or iPhone 17 Ultra if the speculated variant replaces the Max. This device will presumably be built on the same 3nm technology as the A18 CPU, so we would not anticipate a major improvement in performance. However, the A19 chip is said to have a vapor chamber heatsink, which could result in improved sustained performance. One of the main anxieties regarding the iPhone 17 Air, aside than durability, is that it won't last long enough on a charge. However, Bloomberg's Mark Gurman writes that Apple has been working hard to provide the iPhone 17 Air battery life that's on par with current iPhones. To be fair, it encompasses a rather broad range of runtimes based on our iPhone 16 battery tests. The ordinary iPhone 16 averaged 12 hours and 43 minutes on our web browsing battery test, while the iPhone 16 Pro Max persevered for nearly 17 hours. The iPhone 16 Plus gets 16 into 29. So we'd be thrilled with anything over 12.5 hours from the iPhone 17 Air, which would be outstanding with a smaller size battery. Gurman thinks Apple will pull it off by concentrating on efficiencies in the display, semiconductor components, and software. There's no clear news on the iPhone 17 Air's pricing, but Apple might opt to charge the same $899 it charges currently for the iPhone 16 Plus. Apple also potentially elect to charge $999 for the gadget if it opts to hike the price of the iPhone 16 Pro to $1,099, but that's just conjecture. Overall, I'm more enthusiastic than negative about the iPhone 17 Air. If Apple can reproduce the magic of the MacBook Air in iPhone form and get people enthused about phone design again, it may have a true winner on its hands. It merely has to persuade customers that the iPhone 17 Air doesn't make too many trade-offs in order to attain its slimline design. So, if you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for more tech news. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.